You will call me Commander.
The elite military group G.I. Joe has numerous foes, including the Wizard of Disguise Zartan, the morally corrupt weapons master Destro, and the psychotic, genetically engineered Serpentor. But there is one evil who rules above them all: Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander is actually the head of the infamous Cobra organization, which is devoted to terrorizing the globe. Since his inception as a mail-in figure in 1982, Cobra Commander has battled the Joes for decades. He's since become an icon of wickedness and cruelty. The comics and television series that followed the 1980s version built on the figure and revealed more of his mysteries. We've heard more about his background, seen his face several times, and have even seen him being replaced. With G.I. Joe starring in the upcoming Hasbro Cinematic Universe, let us learn more about the Cobra Commander. When we think about the Cobra Commander, we have to be clear about who we're talking about. The character begins as a single character in the show and comics, although there have been more. For example, in the United Kingdom, a tactics series called Battle Action Force included the Red Shadows, a terrorist organization commanded by Baron Ironblood. When it was decided to convert Action Force to G.I. Joe in 1985, Baron Ironblood founded a new organization called Cobra, and switched his identity to Cobra Commander. Cobra Commander seems to be a rank and appointed position within the Cobra gang in the IDW universe. In the first Cobra Commander featured in G.I. Joe Cobra issue 1, the commander was a prosperous businessman whose presence was kept hidden even from the majority of Cobra. When he was killed, a new and more brutal Cobra commander called Crake was elected to take his place, and he ruled supreme. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin.
My hope, Cobra Commander, and you failed me.
Cobra Commander, Dark Backstory. In the 1987 G.I. Joe movie, we get to explore more about the origins of Cobra Commander. Pythona, a lady from the hidden civilization Cobra La, penetrates the Terradrome as Cobra Commander, and she and the Serpentor accuse each other's leadership of Cobra as the main cause of the group's problems. While there, she tells Serpentor that Cobra La inspired Dr. Mindbender to develop Serpentor through mind manipulation. Serpentor intends to seize G.I. Joe's latest weaponry, the Broadcast Energy Transmitter, at a request, also known as the BET. Cobra attacks the Joes when they put the BET to test in the Himalayas. The BET is used by the Joes to trigger their automatic weapon systems. Serpentor has been apprehended, and Cobra Commander has ordered a retreat. Cobra Commander commands his men as they enter Cobra La. As the Joes start celebrating their victory, a new team of rookie Joes is added to the group, including the reportedly klutzy Kunoichi Jinx, Army Police Sergeant Law, and also his dog Order, retired basketball star Big Lob, EOD expert Tunnel Rat, undercover police officer Chuckles, and also Duke's impulsive half-sibling Lieutenant Falcon, who is a Green Beret. The Joe troops are attacked and imprisoned in the Lovecraftian setting of Cobra La. The Cobra warriors are greeted by the civilization's leader, Globulus, who seems to have Pythona along with his other sidekick, Nemesis Enforcer, imprisoned by the Cobra Commander. While over there, Cobra finds out about their history. Cobra La was actually an ancient civilization that dominated the Earth 40,000 years ago. However, the Ice Age, human evolution, and the development of science and technology resulted in Cobra La's survivors being pushed into Himalayan tunnels. Cobra La reconstructed their civilization in secret throughout the generations. Globulus pledged to annihilate humans in order to regain the world for his people. He ultimately tracked down an aristocrat who was developing biological weapons. The aristocrat rose up in the ranks to become Cobra Commander, tasked with conquering the globe for Cobra La. Cobra Commander's repeated failures, on the other hand, prompted Globulus to utilize a psychic motivator on the infamous Dr. Mindbender to develop Serpentor. Elsewhere, a disguised Zarana infiltrates Serpentor's confinement cell using Falcon. Duke assigns Falcon to guard duty as punishment for forsaking his training. Nemesis Enforcer and the Dreadnoks rescue Serpentor when Falcon abandons his station to flirt with Jinx, wounding Alpine, Gung Ho, and Bazooka in the process. Falcon is chastised by General Hawk for leaving his station and is confined to his barracks until court-martial. Cobra Commander is prosecuted at Cobra La, and Globulus discloses his intentions to send spore pods with transformative spores to space and then utilize the BET to germinate them, therefore dooming humanity. He condemns Cobra Commander for all his constant failures after his trial by introducing him to the deadly spores. which changes him into a snake. He runs and follows Roadblock to the Joe's camp. General Hawk assigns Falcon to a place named Slaughterhouse, where he'll be fully trained under Sergeant Slaughter with his renegades, who include ex-Viper Mercer, a retired football player named Red Dog, and former gymnast Taurus. The five hear of Cobra's intentions and also that the Baroness had found the whereabouts of the BET while on a weaponless recon expedition in the Terradrome. Cobra attacks the Joes while Falcon and the rest of them destroy the Terradrome. Cobra is attacked by the Joes, but unfortunately, the BET is taken. When Serpentor tries to assassinate Falcon, Duke intervenes and is knocked out. Falcon, the Renegades, and then all the new recruits travel to the Himalayas to bring Cobra La to justice. Cobra Commander leads the G.I. Joe crew to Cobra La's lair. As the Joes free their captive colleagues, the new recruits show themselves to be valuable soldiers. Falcon, Sergeant Slaughter, and Jinx are pitted against Globulus, Serpentor, and Pythona. The subsequent combat ends with Jinx and Slaughter dispatching Nemesis Enforcer and Pythona to their supposed demise. Finally, Falcon dispatches Serpentor from Cobra La and configures the BET to destroy the spore pods in space before destroying Cobra La. The strike team learns immediately after the battle that Duke has awoken from his unconsciousness and is healing.
How could they? They do this to me!
Comic origins of Cobra Commander. In G.I. Joe, A Real American Heroes comic issue 1, Dr. Adele Burkhart is one of the country's leading nuclear scientists and one of the architects of the Doomsday Project, which is a military weapon system capable of decimating all life on planet Earth. She's on her way to Washington, D.C. to testify before a congressional committee, claiming she was uninformed of the purpose of the Doomsday Project when working on it. Dr. Burkhart's train is ambushed by Cobra soldiers before she can reach Washington. Cobra warriors on gliders assault the train's exterior, while Cobra agents on the interior, dressed as reporters and led by the wicked Baroness, grab Dr. Burkhart and depart on a Cobra chopper. A metaphorical shitstorm has erupted at the Pentagon. The capture of Dr. Burkhart by Cobra forces the United States to send in a special counter-terrorist group, Delta, codenamed G.I. Joe, which is a 13-man unit led by a man named Colonel Clayton M. Abernathy, aka Hawk. The squad is immediately briefed in the pit, a top-secret armored subterranean operations center deep underground the Army Champlain's Assistant School located at Fort Wadsworth. Despite their dislike for Dr. Burkhart, the crew is planning a rescue expedition to a Caribbean island, where Cobra has established a base among the local people. Snake Eyes, Short Fuse, Stalker, Breaker, Scarlet, Grunt, and Flash lead an attack on the Cobra Island's north shore, while Rock and Roll, Grand Slam, Steeler, Clutch, Hawk, and Zap lead a vehicle assault employing the Ram, Mobat, and Vamp. Dr. Burkhart is apprehended by the team, while he is also held at gunpoint by the Cobra Commander. Dr. Burkhart tries to restrain Cobra Commander, however, she's shot, allowing Scarlet to hurt Cobra Commander using a throwing star. Dr. Burkhart is saved, but the Baroness and Cobra Commander flee aboard an aircraft to their actual headquarters. Meanwhile, Snake Eyes has already been dispatched to the Middle East, alongside Scarlet and Rock and Roll, to obtain a recording with the information about Colonel Sheriff, a despot supported by Cobra. While Stalker, Clutch, and Hawk prepare to remove the tape, Snake Eyes' crew is being followed by Colonel Sheriff and all his zealous troops. Scarlet has been hurt and is not able to walk. To complete the objective, she causes Snake Eyes and Rock and Roll to flee with the cassette, enabling her to slow down the pursuers. Rock and Roll regretfully departs while Snake Eyes remains. Rock and Roll comes back on a motorbike after dropping the tape off to assist his friends who are just about to be arrested by sheriff's soldiers. But they're swiftly put in jeopardy when they're followed by an assault aircraft. The plane prepares to strafe the fleeing Joes, but is shot down before it can attack. Colonel Hawk arrives in a Vamp, carrying word that Stalker has fled along with the tape, which everybody refers to as the hot potato. In issue number 55, Cobra Commander and Destro locate an escape drill vehicle in the wreckage of the pit. Dr. Mindbender is baffled as to why Flint does not reply to the brainwave scanning, or how there are no facial expressions at all. Envoys arrive with word of a counter-revolutionary onslaught reaching the Terradrome. Therefore, the Baroness dispatches Zaymot and Tomax to deal with them. Back in the pit, Cobra Commander and Destro board the drill and then use it to create a fresh trench. They appear at a deserted retail complex on Staten Island. Serpentor declares his intention to establish Cobra as a legitimate government on Cobra Island. Meanwhile, Tomax and Zaymot observe that the present counter-revolutionaries are commanded by a G.I. Joe squad, comprised of Stalker, Beachhead, Leatherneck, and Lowlight in Sierra Gordo. Mindbender notices Flint is sporting a rubber mask, and proceeds to rip it off, revealing a repulsive visage that the Baroness recognizes as Snake Eyes. Joes and counter-revolutionaries approach, taking down Cobra troopers of the appropriate size. Meanwhile, a trooper agrees that the documents are in order, but remarks that Cobra Commander's true name is odd and familiar. The trooper describes a fiery automobile collision that occurred a little more than a year ago, with just one survivor, a youngster who climbed out with severe burns. The only identification he had was his wallet, which bore his name, and there were no other records of him, except a picture of his father, who resembled Cobra Commander, only without the spectacles and mustache. Mindbender orders the deployment of a chopper as a gunship as the Cobra troopers escape within the facility. The Baroness dispatches the recently returning troopers to watch the prisoner, but when they arrive, they kill the previous guards and expose themselves as Joes. They leave the drome, destroy the helicopter, and retreat to the bush, but Stalker is severely injured. Stalker instructs the rest of the team to leave him behind because he would just slow them down. So, Snake Eyes takes over, being the next senior member. In the 2012 comic book, The Origin of Cobra Commander, the Cobra Commander's backstory is explored in detail. The issue starts off when a baby is born on the outskirts of a battlefield inside the Golden Triangle. As men carrying weapons fight over an opium crop, his mother, whose name is Nagam, is pleased with the delivery of her baby, who has tiger eyes. But her happiness is brief when the child's father is murdered by an explosion, forcing her to escape south with the rest of the women, children, and seniors of her unnamed hamlet. Years go by and the youngster and his mom find employment with the Shan tribe, picking poppies for native drug runners, until the local enforcers force themselves on his mother one day. The youngster snatches one of the enforcers' rifles and fires. But by the time his clip is empty, his mother has died, forcing the child to take his boss's weapons and go out on his own as a soldier and an orphan. As the youngster gets older, he would become a mercenary commander, murdering for profit and gathering a following known as Tiger Eyes. In one incident, while looking out for Karens for cash, his mercenaries are compelled to seek cover in a paddy field to prevent a Thai aircraft from detecting them. However, Tiger Eyes doesn't at all hide. Rather, he takes aim and kills the pilot dead with his rifle, causing the helicopter to fall to the ground burning. Such instances have earned him the reputation of having magical luck, but he doesn't have any belief in this. Life is an accidental occurrence that may end at any moment, and you have to manufacture your own luck. Despite his luck, he and his men are apprehended by Thai security forces and brought to a Thai Air Force detention center in Udon Thani, where he is let go by a general to carry out a murder for him. But after murdering the target, and also being offered payment, he ends up killing his supervisor, grabs all the man's money, and goes back to his old life. While Tiger Eyes arrives for a rendezvous with a local gangster, Tron, he learns that the guy and his friends have all been murdered by a team commander by Major Blood. In order for Blood's bosses to take over for Tron's activities, Blood explains that China's anti-drug squad was aware of the meeting due to a spy in Tiger Eye's team, but they aren't aware of who it is. Nevertheless, rather than attempting to uncover the facts, Tiger Eyes snatches one of the security officer's weapons and kills all three of his men by shooting them, with a member of Blood's entourage holding the young guy. Blood equates him to a crake, which is a nasty, swift Australian snake, and, pleased with his tenacity, hires Crake on the fly to operate for Blood's mysterious masters. Needing to learn more about his enigmatic benefactors, Craig calls a French contact from his luxurious Bangkok apartment, which he has received through his connections with them. But while his contract claims to be unaware of who they actually are, he's basically being intimidated to hold his silence by the dangerous Storm Shadow, who kills him once he hangs up on the phone. At the same time, a group of violent and armored men storm Craig's flat, but he battles his way through them, knocking one out with his bare hands before reaching the handguns he keeps beneath his bed and dispatching his enemies. They eventually get the best of him as Craig is knocked unconscious, waking up in a jail as the Baroness is in front of him. Though she clarifies that his benefactor's confidentiality is the reason they survive, the organization admires his tenacity in trying to figure out their true intentions, and she welcomes him to join Cobra. And yet, Craig strikes her, unwilling to be anyone's lapdog and attempting to create his own way and rely solely on himself as he's been in the past. Craig is knocked down by Cobra soldiers and falls unconscious as the Baroness promises to show him how awful things may go. Craig wakes up in Kowloon, Hong Kong and is instantly recognized and pursued by local gangster Uncle Ho. The Chinese triads have set a price on his head, which Ho plans to collect on. Craig meets up with his only friend, Zhang, but despite agreeing to help arrange transportation out of the city, Zhang already has been bought out by the crafty Uncle Ho, and Ho's men sit tight for Craig at the wharf, but Craig expects the ambush and ends up killing the men before going back to the main city to kill Zhang in retaliation, then fleeing Hong Kong on his own. Major Blood is eventually apprehended in Bruinda, where he's been leading a battle on behalf of aspiring despot President Morobu. When brought to the Cobra commander, Craig gives Cobra an offer, supplying insights on the mainland triads in return for a position within Cobra and money for surgery to fix his appearance. Cobra Commander provides Cobra's own doctors for the operation, but Craig refuses, planning to murder them after their work is over. And upon undergoing the treatment in Zurich, he does exactly that, while donning a mask so no one sees his actual face. After giving the Baroness the information that he pledged on the Triad leaders meeting, Craig requests a last favor, as he flies to Hong Kong and kills Uncle Ho, and all his accomplices including a flight pod. And in his command center, Cobra Commander describes that with the acquirement of the Triads, the Cobra's reach has become truly international, all thanks to Craig. But despite his explanation of Cobra's newest edition of personifying its true essence, the Baroness doesn't really trust him and vows that if he falls, he never will get up again. Amazing story of Cobra Commander from film series. Rex and his sister Anna had lost their parents when they were young and were left orphaned. He became great buddies with Wallace A. Weiss and Conrad Hauser after becoming a US soldier and an intellectual doctor, the latter of whom fell madly in love with Anna and got engaged to her. She promised to marry him only if he agreed to keep Rex safe from harm. While on an overseas mission, Conrad put him into a facility to get data on some unknown weapons being built, while an attack was launched in 5 minutes to demolish the structure inside. He discovers a computer file of the project named Nanomites, which was considerably more sophisticated than anything in modern science. As he developed an interest in it, he encountered Dr. Mindbender, who was contracted to build them by Mars Industries head James McCullen. Mindbender prevented Rex from leaving when the airstrike arrived too soon, and offered to educate him with info regarding the nanomites if they managed to survive. Conrad, Anna, and Wallace, along with the entire world, concluded he was dead when the bombing demolished the structure. Rex and Mindbender did, in fact, escape the attack, although he was severely disfigured and was given suitable medical devices to live on. Joining Mars, he learned about nanomites from Mindbender, eventually completing his study and going on to become its assistant. Rex, now known as the Doctor, acquired a strong loathing for Conrad after leaving him for dead. Yet, he also felt pity for Anna when Conrad abandoned her out of shame. The Doctor eventually sneaked into Anna's home one evening and infused her with some nanomites, making her his first trial subject and transforming her into the Baroness. Rex stated that, despite his depravity, he sincerely loved his sister and thought that by reprogramming her to operate for McCullen, he had provided her life with meaning and a method to deal with the sorrow of being truly alone. Over the following 4 years, the Doctor was able to employ his nanomites to build the Neo Viper program and the warheads required for McCullen's scheme for world dominance. He was especially fascinated by cobra snakes, turning the species into a trademark of his art.
The king, Cobra. Magnificent creature, nature's grim reaper and symbol of lethal.
The Doctor initially appears in the film when McCullen goes back into his headquarters in the North Pole, wherein he shows the findings of his 20 Neo Vipers, as well as the fact that one of the Vipers was embedded inside the White House as part of McCullen's plot. He used it to show they are entirely indoctrined, and experience no fear, pain, regret, or guilt for their deeds. And when a King Cobra strikes one on the arm, all the nanomites spew its venom, impressing McCullen. He then has a group of them help the Baroness and Storm Shadow in gathering the nanomite nukes that G.I. Joe now has a result of their unsuccessful attack on NATO's transportation. He proposed selling one of the warheads on the black market so that he could resume his study, but McCullen, despite this, says he'll use them to cause chaos by demolishing Beijing, Washington D.C., and Moscow, so he can combine them under a single leader who works for him. He then assured the Doctor that he'd be free to conduct as much research as he wanted after that. Later, he prepped Zartan for his role in McCullen's plan, to use nanomites to imitate the President of the United States. The plan worked, and Zartan now looked like the president, whom he would replace amid the confusion of the warhead assaults. He also had his presidential bunker, which he ensured would shield them from all the nanomites. Doctor was testing his new mask when Storm Shadow and the Baroness came to the facility with Conrad, who was now known as Duke. As their prisoner before McCullen arrived with them to visit him, after Doctor demonstrated that the nukes were being loaded and prepared for launch, they assigned Duke to the Neo Viper program and whisked him away for the process. As he prepared him, he revealed Mars Industries' worldwide infrastructures, and that he was actually inside an experimental bunker that wasn't yet able to defend one from the onslaught nuclear bomb to a nanomite weapon. When Duke questioned who he really was, Rex unmasked and showed himself, aggravating him, and Duke was moved by his moving ceremony, despite the fact that it was an empty coffin. He said that he never returned due to his findings in Mindbender's bunker, and that Anna was unaware of him. Anna broke away from her restraints just as he was ready to introduce the nanomites inside Duke, attacking Rex and freeing Duke, just for Rex to utilize a remote to immobilize Anna, exposing what he'd done to her, and that he might also murder her with the click of a button. He contacted McCullen and security, who concluded that Anna's affection for Duke assisted her in overcoming Rex's nanomites, something that had never occurred to any subjects previously. While G.I. Joe was attacking the facility, Duke took out a shock pistol on them, and as Rex was about to execute Anna, he fired at McCullen while firing a flamethrower, knocking Rex down and taking control of everything from him. Rex then returned to his private submarine with a facially burned McCullen. Rex commanded his Neo Vipers to blast the ice pack, which would demolish the base and slaughter all the Joes, as Duke and Anna chased them and fired their propellers. Throughout the pandemonium, Weems, who is now known as Conrad, destroyed the nukes, allowing the Joes to flee the falling facility. Zartan had, however, substituted the president inside the bunker. Rex injected nanites into McCullen's scorched face and converted him into metal, naming him Destro after his forefathers, who would be keeping him in check. McCullen first assumes it is his rightful succession to the McCullen line, but Rex calms him down and dubs him Destro, then discards his doctor disguise and seizes leadership of Mars Industries off McCullen, showing that he had his own goals the entire time. He renames it Cobra, with himself as its glorious leader, now naming himself Cobra Commander, also donning his new mask. An enraged McCullen begins to question what Rex has done with him and tries to attack him, but he's subdued and forced to render unquestioning obedience to him due to the nanomite's mind-controlling ability. Following that, Rex is approached by Duke, and also the other Joes, and detained with Destro. Despite the fact that Cobra Commander was imprisoned for his offenses, his seizure of Mars and rebranding it as Cobra had major consequences, as the whole organization, even Zartan, became devoted to him, donned the Cobra symbol, and began following his objectives. He and Destro were also brought to a German jail facility where they were confined inside containers and was given a new helmet to keep him alive. During the film's events, he covertly organized for Zartan to classify G.I. Joes as terrorists and got ex-Joe Firefly to slaughter all the Joes in a single strike. Soon after, once Zartan discovered where Cobra Commander was held as a result of torturing the genuine President of the United States, Storm Shadow invaded the facility while acting as Snake Eyes, alongside Firefly, subsequently publicly bombing the base with his flying bombs. They got the Cobra Commander out, who stated that Destro is out of the band, and after a guard fired a coolant tank, setting the facility on fire. The three fled while Storm Shadow was injured. Cobra Commander directed that he be taken to be cured. He comes to the Zeus Industrial Complex along with Firefly, now sporting his prison mask, which has been transformed into a new helmet, and everything confirms that his preparations are on track. Zartan appears, compliments his new mask, and informs him that three Joes, Roadblock Flint and Lady J, escaped Firefly's attack. After expressing his rage, Cobra Commander orders the two of them to track down and kill the Joes as soon as possible, knowing that they could still represent a severe danger. Later, he finds the imprisoned president and compels him to provide them with a scan of his retina in order to unlock the nuclear football, saying that it was the final piece of the jigsaw. He instructs Zartan to organize an anti-nuclear summit with the heads of France, the United Kingdom, China, India, Israel, Russia, and North Korea, during which he activates the nuclear football and launches all of America's warheads in order to force everyone to do the same. Cobra Commander came to the peak with Storm Shadow and other Cobra enforcers as he engaged their self-destruction switch and encouraged everyone to do the same. Cobra Commander and Zartan then presented Project Zeus, a kinetic bombardment-enabled space weapon system in which each satellite is equipped with tungsten rods with the force of a nuclear bomb. Cobra Commander insists that they vow unconditional devotion to him and Cobra after they demonstrate the power of a rod by destroying London. Storm Shadow and Jinx, who have turned sides and joined the Joes, however, assault the Cobra soldiers just as all leaders are ready to surrender. During the conflict, Cobra Commander directs the satellite to attack all of their specific targets. The Joes save the leaders, including the President of the United States, kill Zartan and Firefly, and eliminate the satellites even before they can fire. Following the incident, Cobra Commander is compelled to take leave as the president, and reclaims his post and declares the Joes heroes, and Roadblock pledges to track down and kill Cobra Commander for his misdeeds, and seeks revenge for all the Joes he's murdered, particularly Duke, who was killed during the attack.
What is it you want?
I want it all.
Interesting fact about Cobra Commander you should know. Cobra Commander, like much of what we presently know about G.I. Joe, was invented by Larry Hama while working on the Marvel comic. Cobra Commander, according to Hama, is someone in love with his own voice, notably someone like William F. Buckley. Junior Buckley was a conservative author and debate host who founded the National Review Journal in 1955, and conducted the debate program Firing Line. Most people believe that Cobra Commander's history is unknown, although certain truths have been disclosed. Several of the stories are contradictory, although one was featured in the comics soon after Cobra Commander debuted. We learn the origins of Snake Eyes, and also the young man who would become Cobra's leader in 1984's G.I. Joe, a real American hero number 26. He was actually a used car salesman. He was provided with a hazy backstory in the early Marvel comics. Cobra Commander, as an American in the comics, with just one close relative revealed, an elder brother. The commander's brother Dan chose to fight in the army during the Vietnam War in order to save his younger brother from getting recruited. Dan returned with major emotional difficulties as a result of what he'd witnessed. Dan became addicted to alcohol and was driving intoxicated when he was killed in an accident. Dan's accident killed the majority of the members in the car he crashed into, but his younger brother sought vengeance on the single survivor of the incident. That was the start of Cobra Commander's descent into darkness. Snake Eyes' family was killed in an automobile accident perpetrated by a drunk driver. The driver, actually, was the Cobra Commander's brother. Cobra Commander accused Snake Eyes of the death of his brother in his grief. In one version of the narrative, Cobra Commander saves Snake Eyes from an incoming vehicle, and the two become vigilantes and friends. Their friendship came to an end when Cobra Commander attempted to have Snake Eyes execute a dishonest judge who gave them both troubles. When most people think of Cobra Commander, they don't say family man, although he's had a family for a very long time in the comics. Billy Kessler confessed that he was trained to kill Cobra Commander by the Baroness and Major Blood. Billy later returned to battle his father, who eventually killed him over in the comic universe. Cobra Commander is almost synonymous with Cobra. He even has the term Cobra in his very name. However, the Commander's relationship with Cobra has always been rocky since he is a cowardly and sociopathic lunatic. He has left or been driven out of Cobra several times, but he's always returned. He has also died several times in the comics. Cobra Commander was revealed to have dressed himself as the Chief of Staff at the White House, named Garrett Freelo, in G.I. Joe America's Elite number 13. He sought to persuade the president to replace the new G.I. Joe team with a new team dubbed Phoenix Guard. The Phoenix Guard is made up of Cobra warriors that covertly kidnap the Joes, but the scheme fails and Cobra returns to battle. The show's authors recently disclosed that they imagined Cobra Commander as similar to Yosemite Sam. Cobra Commander, like Yosemite Sam, sounded tough and possessed a lot of scary weaponry, but he usually lost horribly. Hasbro owns both G.I. Joe and Transformers, therefore the two universes have always been linked. Nonetheless, the classic Transformer program had a segment with an interesting G.I. Joe tie with Cobra Commander in 1986. In Season 3 segment Only Human, Victor Drath, a criminal lord, intended to take care of the Autobots and resorted to an unknown figure dubbed Old Snake. The brains of the Autobots were placed into human bodies thanks to Old Snake's technique. What matters is that, actually, Old Snake was unmistakably Cobra Commander. He donned the same mask, spoke in the same voice, and his scaly fingers could be seen through the gaps in his gloves. Cobra Commander explained in Resolute Continuity that his timidity and hysteria were all a ruse to sift out traitors and force Cobra to fight for itself. Cobra Commander even became more cruel, murdering Major Blood to showcase how he dealt with betrayal, and demolishing Moscow to display his particle beam weaponry, while holding the globe hostage. Fortunately, he was vanquished, but he was a very vital rethinking of a classic villain. The Doctor was a reimagination of everything to do with the Commander, beginning with the idea that he was not even referred to as the Cobra Commander for the entirety of the live-action G.I. Joe film. Cobra Commander didn't even wear a hood. Rather, he used a breathing mask up until the very last moment, when he donned a mask that bore little resemblance to the originals. The crew apparently felt Cobra Commander's trademark hood and mask resembled the Ku Klux Klan. Springfield has long been associated with Cobra in the comics. Cobra's beginnings were disclosed in 1983, when a pyramid scheme locked the town's residents into the terrorist group, transforming it into a significant base of operations. Springfield, Illinois also held the authorized G.I. Joe Collectors Convention in 2015.
Silence! No one laughs at me!
Cobra Commander isn't the boldest Cobra operator out there, but he is probably among the most accomplished. He's had a direct involvement in enlisting operatives and devising missions for at least 77 episodes, in addition to creating and overseeing the organization for years. He's an expert at planning, obtaining money, warehousing, and staffing his group. And his lifetime of expertise and understanding in this area make him particularly qualified to lead Cobra. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks everyone.
Without my money and organization, you'd be out in the rain watching your face rust.